Good morning. Today's psalm beautifully summarizes who God is in the Bible. And it can be captured in these 4 words. The Lord is kind. The Lord is merciful, slow to anger, and rich in compassion. These words sum up who God is in the Bible when you begin to think about it. And these words, when you look at the teaching of Jesus and the stories that Jesus tells, these 4 words can be found in all the stories, in one way or another. We see today a parable that Jesus tells in response to the question that Peter brought before him. Lord, how many times should I forgive my brother if he does something wrong to me? The answer is as many times as needed. And then Jesus tells this story. And it's a story about a man who needed help in a big way. As a result of, I presume, many foolish mistakes, he found himself buried under a mountain of debt. In fact, so vast was the debt that it could never be repaid. He was ruined, and his entire family was about to be sold. He is in desperation. And then, out of the clear blue sky comes help. The king forgives the entire debt. And that gives this man a new beginning, a new life, hope. It's a powerful moment. And what was the price for this second chance in his life? What was the price? The price was this: give a second chance to someone else who needs it. Now, when you read the parables of Jesus or you listen to his parables, one thing that you find in all of them, that there is always this surprising and shocking twist that you do not expect. And that's what makes parables easier to remember, because you sort of say, okay, remember Jesus told this story, you know. But it also challenges us to think. And what is surprising and shocking in today's story is that this man was forgiven the entire debt, and immediately he sees his own servant and he refuses to forgive his debt. He chokes him, he throws him into prison. You see, as you read this story, what would you expect? You would expect that this man would actually forgive, having been just forgiven his debt. But that's not what happens. That's the shocking element. That's the twist. But again, the story in and of itself reminds us about what our mission as the followers of Christ is. To do for each other what God has done for us. To lend a hand, to give help where it's needed, lift away a heavy burden, give a second chance in all their many forms. As small as maybe having another conversation and saying, you know what, we need to talk about this. We just need to talk. Let's try again. Or maybe as big as giving someone a new chance or a second chance at life. See, the opportunity to do all that is present to us all the time. It may be as close as the person sitting next to us, or as far away as a mother waiting for help, having lost everything in a recent hurricane or an earthquake. You know, there are times, my friends, when human suffering will find us speechless. We just don't know what to think and what to say. However, it should never find us empty-handed. There will be times when the wounds, the brokenness, the fragility of this world will be bigger than our ability to understand. But it should never be bigger than our ability to love and to forgive. That's what this story is all about. You know, one way that we see in this gospel, one way that we can give a second chance to someone is by forgiving. And sometimes forgiveness can be relatively easy. Sometimes forgiveness can be very, very challenging. And it's gonna take time before you're ready to do so. However, the invitation is still the same. Father Richard Rohr, a wonderful Franciscan priest and a spiritual writer, and let me finish with this, speaks of 3 benefits, or 3 what he calls goodnesses of forgiveness. And he says that the first one is this: when I am willing to forgive another person in my life, I recognize that there is goodness in that person, even if they made a mistake, because even the best of us make mistakes. And I acknowledge that there is a dignity in the other person, that there is God's presence in the other person. So that's the first one. The second one is when I'm willing to forgive, as challenging as it may be sometimes, I draw from the goodness inside of me. I draw from the place that's much deeper than the hurt. I draw from what is best in me. And that's the second goodness of forgiveness. And the last one Father Richard Ross says is this. And he says, first of all, we have to remember that to err and to make mistakes is human. To forgive is divine. So when I forgive others, I try to imitate the goodness of God and follow God's way in my life and not my own impulses. And that goodness and that love of God can unlock all sorts of possibilities when I'm willing to forgive and give someone a second chance.